Hi guys, I've been hearing from a lot of you in the comments who are relatively new to the drums, so I want to throw out there a sort of technique crash course. If you've just started out and you're going the route of teaching yourself drums or learning online, I want to offer some tips to make sure you've got your technique squared away. We are going to talk about three things: grip, motion, and posture. These three things pretty much sum up the entire physical aspect of drumming. Lastly, we'll finish with a crucial tip that will help you learn how to become your own teacher, which is essential if you're going to be self-taught. And even if you are taking lessons and you're not going the entirely self-taught route, we do need to know how to evaluate ourselves and how to help ourselves get better. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Also, if you haven't subscribed already, I hope you will. I created this channel to be an honest resource of all the non-glamorous drum tips and techniques, all those things that help us become better drummers. Let's get started. So our first thing, and probably most important and most basic thing, is grip. There are three main kinds of grips. Just a side note, we're really just talking matched grip here. We're not going to go into any kinds of traditional grip or anything like that. If you want to learn traditional grip, you can go find some other great videos out there that aren't mine. So there are three main types of matched grip. There's sort of the standard grip that you see most of the time, which we usually tend to call American grip because it's actually a mix of two other types of grip, French and German. If we're playing with a French grip, we have our thumbs on top of the sticks. It's also referred to as a thumbs up kind of groove because we see our thumbs on top of the sticks while we're playing. It's a very loose kind of grip. The total opposite of that is palms down, where the palms of our hands are facing directly down, the thumbs are on the side. This is a German grip, which is a more stiff, sort of like a marching band, very rudimental kind of grip. And so a lot of times playing drum set, we kind of fuse the two together and we're not totally stiff in marching band style, but we're also not super loose. And so we're kind of in an in-between, which we call American grip. And so that's where our grip is going to reside most of the time playing drum set. Now, hopefully you can see just from my demonstration here some of the basics as far as what I'm doing as I'm gripping the sticks. I'm making sure that I've got my thumbs on there across from my first finger. The stick is kind of resting in that knuckle next to the tip of my first finger. And the goal isn't to squeeze it tightly, it's to allow the stick to rest between your thumb and that first finger so that it can move nice and loose. And also regarding grip, if we're playing loudly, we might want to hold the sticks further towards the butt end so we've got more stick to work with, more weight, more momentum when we throw the stick down at the drum or the cymbal. If we're playing quieter though, it often makes sense to grip the sticks further towards the center. Probably not all the way to the center, but on these Vic Firth sticks, up into the word firth probably, and form our fulcrum there so that we've got less stick to throw down at the drum, which helps us to be more controlled and more stable even while playing quietly. So I call this a crash course because we're really moving quickly through all these different aspects. If you'd like to see something more in-depth about grip and about fulcrum and about finger positioning and all that, I can definitely make a sequel to this video later on. Maybe I will. For now, I hope you're able to glean a lot of that just from watching what my hands are doing here. Moving on to our second thing, motion. So this really encompasses the whole process of taking the stick and throwing it down onto the drum and letting it rebound. So really we're including rebound in this discussion too. Throwing the stick down, the stick bounces. That's the entire motion from the time we lift the stick up to when we throw it down and it comes back up. And again, I'm not going super in depth here because I'm just giving you the crash course basics, but we want to achieve a smooth whipping motion. Let's say we're playing big open strokes slowly, they're loud. The goal is to bring the stick up and then whip it down with this sort of whip-like motion. Hopefully my actions here can speak louder than my words because I'm probably not doing very good at describing it, but if you can watch what I'm doing here, it might make more sense. Really what we're doing is just taking advantage of the mechanics of our arm, wrist, hand, and everything to get the most power with the least amount of effort. That's often our goal in drumming. We don't want to expend more energy than we need to. And a lot of times if we're not doing things smoothly and with ease, we're probably playing too stiff, and a lot of that shock from the stick hitting the drum is going into our arm, which is not good. We want to stay loose, and we want to be able to transfer that energy. So ultimately, when we're playing quietly, we're just using our wrists, but we're also making sure that our hands are staying loose so that the stick is bouncing and moving within our hands. That way our wrist isn't having to work harder than it needs to. So when we combine that loose motion in our hands with the motion of the wrist, and then use the arm to increase the power of the wrist if we're playing loud or hard, then we've really got these three spots, these three areas along from our fingers to our elbow that are working to propel the stick. And if we're playing doubles or something very fast, that's where we've got to bring in our fingers, because our fingers have a lot of agility. They're small, they are small muscles, and usually the smaller muscles and joints in our body can move the fastest and move with the most agility and flexibility. So we can use our fingers to play fast doubles or really fast singles, and we really don't even, we're obviously not using our arms in that case, and we may not even have to use our wrists if we're talking about really fast singles that are all at a steady dynamic. And again, here we could go into a lot of detail talking about doubles, talking about singles, different aspects of this technique depending on exactly what you're playing. But for now, the goal is just to get the point across that we want to stay smooth in our arm-hand motion and make sure the sticks are moving loosely within our hands, that our wrists are controlling them, and that we're using our arms to further increase the power of the wrists. Lastly, posture. This one can more easily be overlooked. First thing is sit up comfortably on your drum throne, sit up straight. Make sure it's a comfortable drum throne. If you're sitting on something really hard and uncomfortable, or it's wobbly and it's squeaking, then that's probably going to drive you crazy for one thing, but it's going to make it more painful to sit up straight. If you've got a comfortable drum stool, you can very easily have good posture sitting up straight the whole time you're playing. Also, and this one really applies to tall people like myself, make sure that you're not sitting too close to the kick drum or the hi-hat stand. In other words, either pull the kick drum and hi-hat stand further back away from you if you need to, or sit further back from the kit. It's easy to make the mistake of sitting up close to it and having your legs scrunched up. The general rule is that you want that angle between your upper leg and lower leg to be 90 degrees or greater, probably greater than 90 degrees. So an obtuse angle, not an acute angle. Your leg and your ankle will much more easily get tired and just worn out and not be able to play well if you're sitting up really tight on those things. But if you give yourself more space, it's a much more natural motion, which leads to our next point here, talking about posture. Make sure you're not leaning into your drums to play them. Now, I'm not saying that you have to constantly be sitting back super relaxed the whole time you're playing. Maybe if you're really digging into a groove, you're gonna kind of bend into it a bit, but you don't want to be doing any kind of like total hunch or just anything awkward or uncomfortable that's straight up bad posture while you're playing, and you don't want to always be leaning in while you're playing. That means you might be sitting too far back, or maybe you've got your snare and your toms and your cymbals too far back. Maybe they need to come forward a bit while keeping the kick further back. So just be aware of those things. Make sure that you're not having to reach too far to hit a cymbal. Make sure the hi-hat isn't in an awkward spot too far from the snare. Just make sure that things are in spots that make sense. Be thinking about this. Feel free to move your kit around and make adjustments all the time. And also, where you have things spaced in relation to each other and in relation to your body might depend on what you're playing, how hard you're playing, how soft you're playing. If I'm playing a pretty heavy rock gig, I'm gonna wanna have drums more spaced out because I'm playing a lot of big open fills. I don't want crashes super close. I want room to hit the crashes, let the stick glance off of it, and it not be awkwardly close to me. I want to have the toms at a decent spacing, and I actually want to have the snare a little bit further back if I'm playing rim shots. If I'm playing quietly in the center of the snare, I don't mind it being closer. Also, if you're playing loud, you might want cymbals higher. You might want to have the hi-hat higher, but if you're playing quietly, you might want things lower. If I'm playing a jazz gig, I want to have cymbals lower, hi-hats lower, and everything a little bit closer together because my movements are smaller and quicker. I'm keeping time on the ride most of the time, and I might be going back and forth with some quick little fills, and I don't want to have to move my sticks further than I need to. I want to make it as easy and smooth as possible for that music that I'm playing. So think about that as well. Cymbal heights and spacing of everything depending on what kind of music you're playing. And last posture point, and I talked about this a little in a previous video about solving thumb fatigue. Make sure that you're staying relaxed while you're playing. A lot of times the sound of your playing, the sound of your groove, the feel of your groove will be a reflection of your tenseness or relaxedness while you're playing. And if you're really stiff and playing in a very nervous manner, the playing is probably going to come across as stiff and nervous and agitated and maybe even a little clumsy and not smooth and fluid. So be sure to sit up straight, relax your shoulders. That can be a tough one. It's very easy to kind of get tense up here around our shoulders and around our neck, but try your best to stay relaxed there while you're playing. Okay, lastly, that crucial tip. You can follow all these points and you can make sure you've got your grip squared away and your motion smooth and your posture solid, but you've got to be able to evaluate yourself on these things and challenge yourself to do better at these things, which you cannot do unless you see yourself doing these things from an outsider's perspective. Assuming you are going the self-taught route and you don't have a teacher telling you these things, or maybe you do, but that lesson's once a week and you want to be able to improve these things throughout the week every day, set up a camera and video yourself, or set up in front of a mirror. If you've got a big mirror that you can set out in front of your kit and watch yourself play, that's great. I think filming yourself is even better because then you can go back and watch the video and really analyze what you're doing well and what you're not doing well. This, I think, is the best way to being your own teacher. Videoing yourself, recording yourself. If you can do it with good audio, that's awesome too, because you can evaluate, you know, the musicality and all the little nitty-gritty things if you're playing to a really deep level if you're recording the audio as well. But it's really important to see what you look like playing and just see how these things are going that you're working on. You're gonna notice things that you don't notice yourself while you're playing them, especially if they're habits that develop. You know, the nature of a bad habit is that we don't realize it's going on, and we might not be able to see that habit until we film ourselves. So if we're videoing ourselves playing, that's forcing us to be totally honest with our playing. Any good teacher is gonna be honest with his student. So you've got to be honest with yourself if you're going to be your own teacher, if you're going that self-taught route. So set up a camera, video yourself, record yourself. That will help tremendously. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope this video might have helped you out, especially if you're a beginner player or you're just wanting to improve and get better at what you do, which is my goal behind this whole channel, why I make these videos. I really hope these points are challenging you to maybe work on these things and video yourself and really work on becoming a better drummer. And also for further viewing, here's a link to the video about the thumb fatigue thing if you want to check out some more stuff just about grip and improving that. As always, big thanks to my subscribers for watching my videos, and if you're not a subscriber, I hope you will consider subscribing. If you want to become a better drummer and you want to just get better at the whole drumming thing, I try to offer as many tips and as much advice as I can on this channel for helping you do just that. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys on the next video.